Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's October 27th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And quick look at our daily chart. You can see that we did turn down on that second entry there. We closed considered off the bottom here. There's quite a bit of stem, but this was still a fairly bearish day. Um, you can see that it looks like we just kind of bounced above the midline there. You would expect us to pull back and test that even if we're going to go higher. So we could turn back up and make another run up, but we could push on through that EMA and trend on down tomorrow. It's still a little iffy. This looked like topping action here, and obviously it turns out it was topping action, and we trended lower today. We started out in a kind of a range type day, and then prices broke out the lower side and failed instantly and shot straight up. And it was really strong momentum on that way up as well. So it looked like we might make another push up today, but at some point the selling came in and prices started trending lower. We just kept going lower. Again, although we did close off the lows, it got real volatile right at the close. So um, maybe some people were profit taking. Maybe people just didn't want to go into the tomorrow with short or whatever, afraid that it might bounce. I don't know. It was interesting how we had a big bounce right there at the. It was almost like looked very similar to a news item. It wasn't the usual 3 o'clock kind of stuff you get right at close. It was all of this was in one or two bars really. All of this movement right here. It's like we bounced up and then sold off again and then bounced back up again. So it was really odd. It looked like some kind of news item. So maybe something came out that I haven't. I mean, I don't watch the news. Most of you know that. I think they write the news to match the price action. Although they'll tell you they'll give you reasons for everything happening. They just write that to match the price action. And I think I've proven that over time, showing you how we're going to go lower long before we ever went lower, and vice versa. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. The fact is we closed down, we closed bearish, although we closed well off the lows. So we'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. Um, Obviously tomorrow's Friday, so no chart lessons on Friday. I know I say that a lot, but we always have new people coming in, and then people ask me, start emailing me, why didn't you do a chart lesson? I can't find your chart lesson today or whatever, and I have to tell them. So it's just easier for me to mention it periodically on here, weekly or whatever, and that way people don't get confused. So, but anyway, let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart, look at today, and go through the trades, and we'll wrap this week up. So let me flip over there. And here's a look at it, and you can see we were in this range earlier. We had this big sell-off here that broke outside, and then man, it rallied right back and took it back real quickly. And then we started trending back down when it couldn't take it higher, and we went. This is a spiking channel down, and we went into this channel, finally got a break, made a new low, and notice that the width of this channel up here, this dashed line would be the measured move equal to that width, and notice that's where we went to before we bounced. And you would think this range or channel was ending because we had the break and a new low, and then suddenly it turned down right after 2:30, and then boom, this happened. But here's what I was talking about. You see that right at 3 o'clock a lot. It just seems a little more. I mean, that was right around 3:30. So I don't know what happened at 3:30 today. Like I said, I haven't looked at the news. Maybe y'all are all scratching your head and saying, "Man, don't you know what happened? Something crazy happened." But my guess is it's not that big a deal. I'd have heard something by now, but I have not looked at the news, and I don't know what caused that bounce. That's not your typical bounce at close. I mean, you can see what it looked like at the close, 3:30. I mean, there's a little bounce right in there, but this was well before 3:30. I mean, we just really didn't do much at all after 3 o'clock yesterday. The day before that, not much after 3 o'clock. prior to that, and hardly nothing after 3 o'clock. So you can see this is kind of there's some volatility there for 3:30 in the afternoon. So I don't know what happened. Maybe we were getting people perceive this to be a good buying point. Maybe people were just taking their profits and all exiting. They got short in this big move down. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it's just interesting to take note of it, and I'll look later and see if maybe something happened around that time that would have spooked the market or whatever. But anyway, let's zoom in here, go through the trades, and wrap this day up and wrap this week up. There was a news item, again, GDP up here. Anything to do with the economy right now that's red, you better be aware of it. You better probably be flat before the market. I mean, this is nothing too wild, but it's just not worth getting caught up in something on the wrong side because everything was definitely down. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you already know there's a break and a new low. So anything past right in here is, I mean, there is a second entry here, and if you took it, it would have worked. But getting short anywhere in here really past once we broke lower here, then this low was starting to be risky because we're probably going to bounce at any time because this channel is played out. Now, sometimes you get in another channel and it keeps going, but that doesn't look like the case here because even if I usually don't do a channel on the retest, but even if you do the channel here, you get the first convincing close is here and you get a new low and you try to go lower a few times and then it takes off. But just be flat on these. Anything to do with the economy right now that's red, I would pay very close attention to it and I would be flat probably going into it. But anyway, that channel runs up, turns, comes back down, and right in here is starting to get normal again. You get your first break, and that's a clear second entry. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry. And there's your quick entry. You had to be quick to get in this one because it gaps. Notice how there's no overlap there. It closes on its low. This one opens, it closes on its low. That's very bearish. So hopefully you could catch this trade. If you just caught this one trade today, I mean, and rode it back down to the lows, I mean, there's 10 points right there on a single runner. So, and that's usually how I find my targets. People ask me all the time, why don't you talk more about targets? And there's specific reasons, mostly because a lot of it's personality driven. Me, myself, I'm probably going to exit where we bounced the last time at a minimum, and you clearly see the support across there. So that's probably where my target would be if I was in this trade. And the reason being is because I don't like to see $500 of profit or more only to watch the market come and take it all back and then turn it into a loser. I mean, sometimes it comes back and it takes it all back and then you make a bigger move down. That does happen. But a lot of times it doesn't. And that's what led me to scalp and run to begin with because I could almost always see a profit and then the next thing you know, it disappears trying to catch a big runner. So one day I told myself, I said, hey, let's just start taking our profits, a nice profit, and see what happens. And the next thing you know, I was making money. So that's really what led me to this whole strategy of scalp and run, because it's not that hard to find an entry to get ahead. It's finding one that continues to run because the market's turned on a dime. And I mean, how many days do we see where it's ranged like this and it just keeps up and down? And if you just jump in and out when the trades are available, it changes everything for you. At least it did for me. So, and on the, so that's why I like to jump in and out. Now, other people, that's just too stressful for them. They're not as good at finding the entries. And those people might want to try to hold on longer. Now, what I would at least do is move my stop up, keep it at break even or something so that it don't turn into a loser. Or every time I make a swing high, which this started out as a swing high, maybe you put your stop one tick above that so you don't give back all your profits. But some people don't like the stress of jumping in and out of the market, and so for them, they want to try to catch the runners. Because if you come back over here today and you catch one of these runners or one of these coming back up, well, you could ride them for a long, long way. So me here, my target probably would have been back up to the midline, but when we started trending lower here and chopping lower, especially when we came back all the way back down here, I probably would have exited once it probably on this next. Here's your first move lower. When it started to make that second move lower, I probably would have exited. Um, I might have had my stop right at the previous support area because you're probably going to come back and test that, so it would be somewhere right in here. And so that's how I would have played it. But you play it however you feel most comfortable, using the targets, using the previous support resistance. Those are always good ones because it usually, even if it's only going to be temporary, it's probably going to bounce at the next support or resistance. So just keep that in mind. But we're coming back here. We had this second entry, nice move. Catch that, maybe that's all you need for the day. It bounces about where you would expect, right at the lows again. We bounced there once, really twice almost. We went a little further, and it takes off. Unfortunately, I don't see anything to get a good entry on the way back, so you just have to watch that one. It tops out. There is a lower high here on it. If you took you might take that one on the engulfing bar, but definitely don't go short right there. There's just not enough room, and you see how it bounces. And it could bounce and go higher. Here it only bounces just momentarily and then it goes lower. But I don't think you want to risk that on this big bar here. I think if you're going to take this one, you got to take it on the engulfing bar. So I'll make that one green. There's a failed second entry long, but it's above the EMA. You don't want to fool with that. We finally get a break, and you get a second entry right here. Notice the new low, first entry. Second entry, it's also starting to go sideways, so it's a little failed breakout. So I like going short on that one, just trying to retest the low. And then it ends up we're just in a range here. You have a failed breakout here, but with this new high still being in the upper side, we could go higher. So I want a lower high at least. And then finally you get a nice bearish bar. Closes back inside the range, the little small range. It's in the bigger range here. And so I like going short there. You know you're probably at least going back to the midline and probably down here. And it actually goes to the down here, comes back, and then comes on down. There's another short here, but there's not enough room there. Just skip that one. And that's a triple test and a second entry short. And you're looking for a new low anyway. So that's a nice setup there. Then you get this 1, 2, 3 triple test at the bottom. Plenty of room to get back out. Just go long right there. Unfortunately, there's no more setups in here. Maybe you take this one. Notice that it's a double bottom. It's a failed breakout, but you're not getting rejection there, and there's not a lot of room back to that EMA, which if we're about to start trending down, which we could because we just came off the highs and prices are not getting back up there. So they're probably trying to go lower, but maybe you take that long. I'll at least mark it green. And this short, I didn't mark it. It's another one that's tempting. I mean, you can see every time we go higher here, we're making, maybe that wasn't a lower high, but we're just consistently making lower highs and lower lows. And so maybe you take that one as well. There's some reasons to take. It's a second entry. It's, I mean, you would think we didn't even get back to the midline. We didn't get to the high on this move. Didn't get back to the midline. You can see we kind of been in it really what it looks like is the range just extended. And when you draw it down, you can clearly see the midline. So I believe that to be what's happened here. And so there's plenty of room to get out between there. And it just keeps going, though. It drops all the way down. You get another second entry up here, but you can't enter here. It's not a good entry. And unfortunately, if you didn't, there's no entry up here, so there's just really no way to get in this trade. You can't enter it way down here. It's not worth risking. Get a break and new low, and then watch what happens. You come up, you get a first entry, then you go higher and you get a second entry. It bounces right off the EMA, so it's a failed second entry short if it breaks higher. It's also a breakout pullback of a little bit of a range here. So there's some reasons to, if we break higher, to assume we're going to come back. I mean, most breakouts fail. And so we're probably going to come back and test this even if we're going lower. So for that reason, maybe you take that failure, that breakout pullback. If you catch that, once again, it's a really nice move. And I don't know what that one would have brought you. I don't think I would have entered this on the engulfing bar, but when it closes here, if it breaks higher, I like that. Let's just say you went till you got the first break lower. That's 12. That's a little over 12 points, $612. And that's the reason I like to use that strategy. Assuming you use that strategy, you would have got out right here. And that's about as high as you could get out without getting out the very highs before it went lower. So that was as good a place, using that strategy of the first bar on a big move like that it breaks lower. Sometimes you might want to wait for the first swing low and then the break lower of it, which is right here, but you see you just give up maybe a few more ticks. So it depends on how you want to play it. So there are two legs back to the EMA here and the trend line, but not a good signal bar. Again, it's a great move, but you just don't get a chance to enter it. And we kind of spike up and go sideways here. It's kind of a spiking channel. Again, I don't really see any trades here that I would risk to go long on. So there's just not much to go with right there. And then we break out and fail real quickly and turn down. And this is just an overshoot here. You actually get a break of the green channel and a new high. This one, you just get an overshoot of it and then it turns down. And no chance to enter that one again. You're bouncing up. There is a triple test right here. If you had enough room back to the EMA, maybe you take that trade. I don't think there's enough room in there. You know, watching that in real time, I didn't like it. And you can see there's not really enough room. You might still, you can easily see the triple test right there. But it looks like a range, and it's finding resistance right at the EMA. So I don't know if you take that one or not. I marked it green just in case, but I think it's a little risky, especially when you're looking for prices to go lower. You're not expecting prices to go higher here. You're expecting them to go lower. But sometimes you don't know how far these corrections will go. It's all about timing. So as long as this trend line's still in play, prices can still go higher, which they did. And then they break out up here and fail and turn down. And I don't see anything. This is a possibility to go short, just to ride it back, but we're not back quite to the highs, and it could push on up. So again, and you can see how they tried to take it back up but couldn't. That's your concern there. And maybe sometimes they're going to be successful at taking it back up, so it's not really worth taking it. And then of course it drops and you just don't get a chance to enter it. It's unfortunate. And then you get a two-legged correction here with a little range in the middle. And there's another triple test here. This is another one I did not mark, but notice how it goes higher. Once, twice, three times. So you might take that trade too. You could at least argue for it to be green, but you don't always want to take every triple test. The reason I don't like that one, I guess I should explain, is because we're back in the range and we just came off the lows, so we're probably going higher. That would be your expectations. I mean, we could go lower here and make another leg down, but your expectations that prices are going to go higher. And look what happens. They fell out the bottom and go higher. They only go to the midline, but sometimes that's what happens. We could have gone all the way up to here. And so you got to be careful taking shorts in the wrong direction. Even if it fits the shorter term version, you got to look at the entire context. And in the big context here, prices should have been trying to go higher, which they did. So they turned down right there. And the reason I like that one is because it's a break out of this little channel or range, and it's a second entry short. Notice that failure, and you get a first entry, second entry, and we've turned down there several times before. And we're way away from the EMA, so I like that one. There's a lower high here too, but we're right back to the support resistance, which is finding support now, and we could go higher. but it doesn't end up going higher. But you can't take that chance. But and it drops down, and you can see here when we come back to this trend line again, it's like, okay, you can see it. We're making lower highs every time we come back. Um, I don't like anything in here. Maybe you go long right here at this low, but it made a new low, so generally you want to wait on a higher low or reversal or something. And plus, there's a chance you got a channel working down here. So I don't have the little trend line drawn there, but there is one. So maybe you take that one though, as I said. There's a hidden second entry there too. I'm just going to make it green. And of course it bounces. And then same thing, you might have taken this one when it broke higher. And it would have, I mean, that one's one that might shake you out, even if you would have been right. But a lot of people get shook and exit that trade only to find out it would have been a winner. And then of course you're moving up, you get your close outside, new high, turns down, confirms that trend line, turns down right off of it, but no signal bar. And we're going lower, and again, no trade. You get a close outside, move to a new low, and then we're working sideways again. And this is kind of a repeat pattern. Notice you traded up, and you're going sideways. Here you're still looking for prices to go lower because we haven't reached the lower side yet. And it's a 1, 2, 3 triple test. Really bearish bar on a lower high as well. I like going short as long as you got room to get out before here because you see it bounces. And instead of going lower, we actually go back higher. But the fact that we've come down into this side once, twice, three, a little bit every time, you got to figure that the other side is down here somewhere. So just kind of look for the midline. You can see it working out there. And sometimes that'll fool you, but the more experience you get, the better you'll get and the easier that'll be to find. But we bounce and run up back to the trend line, and we're moving up. You get a first entry, second entry, and then a lower high right there. Look how bearish that is. Still way away from the EMA. I like that one. And then you try to go higher once, twice, and there's also a first entry, second entry. So it's a failed second entry long and a second entry short and a bearish bar. I like going short there. There's a lower high. I didn't mark this one because it's so close to the lows there. And we're in this little congestion. So I think that one's a little risky, but this one you got plenty of room. And you see it did bounce before it went lower again. There's a failure here. It didn't quite get back to the EMA, but it's another one that maybe you could argue to be green. If you took it, I mean, in real time it looked good. So, we're expecting prices to try to get down lower here. If you're good enough to kind of find the midlines, find the trends using the trend line and the midline only, then maybe. But that's probably a little more advanced. So, but notice the little gap over too. That tells you your trend line's valid right there. I discovered that a few years back. I just kept noticing it. Everywhere I had a trend line or a support resistance line, you'd get these little gaps. And when I say gap, the bars aren't overlapping. Notice it closes on its high, and this one opens on its low and goes higher, and they don't overlap. 90% of your bars are going to overlap, probably 99% of your bars. So when you see gaps and things like that, pay attention to them. They're telling you something. And this turns out to be a good move if you took it. And of course it bounces down here. Rallies, don't be looking to buy here though. Rallies, then work sideways, rallies, sideways. Here we go with that rally sideways stuff. And I just don't see anything. We're really looking for shorts here, so you got to be careful going long. It's got to be a really good setup. And there's just no really good setup here. And you don't want to go short until we've at least got back to the trend line, or you're getting another trend down, working down again. And here we're still trending up. Here we go higher. This one was tempting, really tempting, because look how many times we bounced there, and we're not back to the trend line, and there is room there. So, but I still just don't think you should take it. It runs up and turns down off the high. We finally get a break, and it's just a first entry. There's a second entry here, but signal bar is no good. Makes a new high, and we actually already had a break and a new high here. So, but a lot of times you get two legs up. So as long as we're still above the EMA and trending up, if you see it, if you get a good setup, maybe you take it. Makes that new high, and then the bottom falls out. And again, there's no way to get in up here. There's just nothing there. There's a second entry, but that signal bar is just not good enough. Drops on down, tries to go higher once, twice, three times, and turns down right there at the EMA. I like going short on that. There's really a little, I drew the line there, but there's really a little trading range there. So you're just playing a range is what you're doing. So as long as you got room to scalp out, I wouldn't have a problem taking that trade. And then you make a lower high and it closes way down. I wouldn't enter that on the engulfing bar, but when that closes down here, that negative, I like that short. It takes it a minute, but it drops on down. There's no way to enter down here. You're getting too far away from the EMA. And then it bounces, close outside. It tries to go higher twice. And again, we're just back in a range. If you got room to get out here, take that trade. And this is almost a perfect repeat of where was it way back here somewhere where we were breaking lower. I think it was right. I can't remember where it was. But notice how you're making a lower high each time. That one's real tempting. But again, I'd probably skip it. Bounces, comes back to the trend line. It tries to go higher three times and turns down right at the trend line. It breaks higher, turns down. I like going short right there. Really, you're back in the range. And my guess is this is a measured move down to here. So ends up going all the way down to the, we're actually looking for the measured move off the pink one now. That should be your main target down here. And look how close we get before it bounces. It comes back up here. And once again, you're back at this resistance. And this is a second entry short here. Notice you tried to go lower, then this makes a little lower low. Technically, by the counts, it's probably only going to show you this is a fourth entry or something. But it's still at least a triple test. Plenty of room down to this other side. I like that trade. I mean, look, we tried to go higher three times there. Plus, we've already tried to go higher all the way across there. It might, since it's so close to 230, you might say, okay, this one should be green. But because we've turned down so many times across there, I think you're safe taking that trade. Really what I think's happened is this range just expanded some. And you just bring it on across like so. And that's how I saw it anyway. So, and that was it. So that's going to wrap up our week. It's going to wrap up our day. We'll be back again to do it Monday. So I hadn't said anything about it, but my son is getting married this weekend. So I'm going to take off early tomorrow. I've got wedding rehearsal and wedding rehearsal dinner and all that tomorrow. So a big day in our family, and I'm excited and a little nervous about it as well, but be my first one to marry off. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back again to do it Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.